Today I'm going to talk about Antonio Vivaldi's Winter, Four Seasons, First Movement, Allegro non molto. Antonio Vivaldi was an Italian Baroque composer, violinist, and Catholic priest who lived from 1678 to 1741. He was nicknamed the Red Priest because of his red hair. Born in Venice, Vivaldi spent most of his career at the Ospedale della Pietà, an orphanage where he taught music to young girls and composed a lot of musical pieces. His music is known for its vivid contrast, rhythmic drive, and theatrical sense of drama. The Four Seasons was composed around 1718 to 1723 while he was serving as a court triple master in Mantua. It was published in 1725 in Amsterdam as the first four concertos, with larger sets of 12 called Ritornello di Armonia e del Invenzione, which means the contest between harmony and invention. This title captures Vivaldi's ambition to pit the formal rules of harmony against the wild freedom of musical imagination. What makes the four-season revolutionary is its programmatic nature. Vivaldi published each concerto alongside a sonnet that describes the scene the music depicts. Vivaldi translates these words directly into song, making this one of the earliest and most detailed examples of program music in Western history. In this movement, the sonnet describes the winter as shown in the picture. Listening to this piece in a concert is a wonderful experience. From the very first notes, I can feel the raw, urgent, and almost violently expressive in the music. The changes between loud and soft are very extreme. The parts with the full orchestra hits hard like a sudden snowstorm, while the solo violin sounds shaky and alone. There's a dramatic feeling here, as the musicians are not just playing notes, but telling a story about the cold winter. The part where the teeth chatter, which happens around this later stage of the movement, was especially memorable. The solo violin played very quickly over and over again. It felt almost physically uncomfortable, as if the cold had gotten inside the violin itself. Here is the listening guide of this piece. You can pause the video to take a look. Now I will explain each part in detail. Let's start with Ritornello 1. The opening starts in F minor, a dark and sad key that immediately brings a feeling of chillness and gloom. It's also confirmed when E natural, which is the accidental of E flat, appears in the bass as the leading tone of F minor. Vivaldi constantly uses leading tone to slowly move from F minor to very temporary B flat minor to finally C minor through dissonance and then resolve to great tension. Building on this harmonic foundation, the melody is mechanical and still instead of smooth or song-like. The first violin plays a steady eighth notes. The short notes sound like soft tapping and cold, and the trills that Vivaldi adds to the melody represents the physical trembling of a body shivering from the cold. The texture here is homophonic. The full-string orchestra plays as one, with the leading violin carrying the melody, the first and second violins and violas providing inner harmony, and the cello anchoring the bass. The organ adds harmonic support. This rich full sound creates a wall of music that feels impossible to escape, much like the cold itself. Now move on to solo 1. The key continues to be C minor. To ensure this section sounds like C minor instead of its relative key E flat major, Vivaldi added A natural and B natural, which only appears in melodic scale of C minor, to represent the terrible wind described in Vivaldi's corresponding sonnet. The soloist plays 30-second notes passage rapidly to simulate the biting, unpredictable nature of a winter gale. The orchestra occasionally punctuates the texture with brief staccato chords, maintaining the underlying shivering atmosphere established at the start of the movement. This provides a vivid contrast between the collective physical sensation of cold and the external chaotic force of the wind, and this repeats two more times to emphasize the contrast. Now let's talk about Ritornello 2. The key returns to F minor. The opening ritornello melody returns, but after this part, it is played at a louder volume and with a sharper attack to strengthen the sense of constant movement. Although the pattern is similar to ritornello 1, a pattern of short and sharp bursts of sound is created to sound like stamping feet in the snow, like dun, 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 dun. The lower string is much more noticeable than the first ritornello to emphasize this effect. Driven by this heavy texture, rhythm becomes more complicated. The steady eighth notes are now mixed with 16th notes, further intensifying the stamping effect. Now let's talk about solo 2. This section gradually moves from F minor to E flat major, with a relative major key. It's a surprising harmonic shift that briefly leaves the tension. The warmth of E flat major is misleading, however, because it only lasts for a short time before the cold returns. The soloist continues the 30-second note motion, but soon the melody is interrupted by the full orchestra playing the shivering motif. This creates a musical conversation, with the solo violin representing the people shivering and the orchestra representing the cold wind. The melody is broken into pieces as the soloist is struggling against the whole group. As the melody becomes fragmented, the texture switches back and forth between solo and full orchestra. One moment we hear a single exposed voice, and the next moment we hear a wall of strings. The contrast is sharp and dramatic, and rhythm becomes very unstable, making it impossible to guess where the next strong beat will land. Let's move on to Ritornello 3. The ritornello appears in E flat major. The full orchestra returns, playing with a lighter texture, which sounds almost happy, creating a brighter sound. The eighth note pulse continues, but now there are some 16 notes appears between the eighth notes. It seems like the winter is almost at the end, but these short notes and melody create tensions as we are waiting for something to happen. Vivaldi also adds D flats in the fill chords, which doesn't belong to E flat major, hinting at a return to F minor in the next solo section. That means the winter will return soon, which leads to solo 3. As you can notice, the solo violin plays 30-second notes quickly with repeated patterns. Without the orchestra, the texture becomes very thin, with only the solo violin and the basso continuo. This exposed texture makes the chattering effect even more uncomfortable, as you're listening to one person shivering alone in the cold with teeth chattering. The key slowly moves from E flat major back to F minor. To achieve this goal, Vivaldi decided to use dissonance and consonance to create an extremely unstable harmonic structure. The key slowly moves from E flat major from Ritornello 3 back to F minor. Dissonance creates the feeling of unconfidence, pushing you to resolve the tension to reach consonant. For example, first a E flat major chord with minor third interval, which is pretty consonant. Then the E flat shifts to D, but the C doesn't move, creating a major second, which is dissonant. To resolve that, C is moved to B flat, creating a minor third interval again, back to consonant, and so on and so on. These loops create a tracing between two notes, one going down or up first, creating a dissonant first. Then analog follows, creating consonants again. This not only creates an intense non-stop melody, but slowly moves the key from E flat major to the home key F minor. The loop breaks here by moving the two notes together. This pushes the key back to F minor in the final ritornello. Now we reach the final section, ritornello 4. The key is back to F minor. Here, there's no more shifting between chords. It stays dark, cold, and uncomfortable. Built on this dark harmonic foundation, the melody is pretty similar to Ritornello 2. Every instrument plays the same rhythmic pattern, which is dominated by the 16 and 30-second notes. This spectacular, which eventually silenced the individual struggle represented by the solo violin. This movement ends with a solid F minor chord to create a strong conclusion of this piece. Thank you for watching. I hope all of you enjoyed my video. I highly recommend all of you listening to all the video performances in the description below. They are all fantastic. Goodbye.